Renew You has been, for me, a very interesting experience. There were certain things that I wanted to be able to prove or disprove. I also had certain contentions about how we take care of ourselves, how we don't take care of ourselves, and I wanted to see how that would be reproduced in a small group setting. And when I began to think about it, I began to see that Renew You is really a microcosm that allows us to explore larger truths and issues. And I looked up the word microcosm, and it's an interesting definition. It says it's a community, a place, or a situation regarded as encapsulating in miniature the characteristic features of something much larger. And each week I began to witness the truth of that. I began to see that that's exactly what we were doing. I began to see that our behaviors, how we exhibited within the group, were really indicative of how we behave in a larger community. And this holds true not just for those who are in a group called Renew You or psychotherapy groups, but this really holds true in terms of the smallest group unit that we may have, which would be called family. How we are in our home, that is a microcosm of how we're going to be on the job, at church, any place like that. And so I really wanted us to focus in the group on who are we and how do we function and how do we function with each other, especially in terms of spirituality. And one of the measures that I had for the program really wasn't so much going to be the idea of weight loss, lower BMI, those kind of things. One of my hallmarks was going to be that did we grow spiritually? How were people with this idea of confronting who is this person that God made them to be, and to be able to confront behaviors, because I see largely our inner behaviors tend to work out. We tend to sometimes put them onto external things as a way to not really deal with things. So what do I mean by that? For instance, let's suppose that you have a very rebellious nature. Now that's an internal issue. That rebellious nature often will take the form of being rebellious when it comes to taking care of yourself, having this piece of almost anger, almost an issue with authority that I'm not going to do this, and I don't want to do this, and I don't want to be controlled. And interestingly enough, when we see this coming up in a group dynamic, we might tend to see, well, oh, that she or he has a problem with food. No, that is not the problem. That's a manifestation, that's an externalization of the problem, but the real problem is a problem with inner authority. So what does Renew You really encapsulate? And I thought as I went along, I began to see really what people really care about. It's helped me to really get a really bird's eye view of what is it that I really care about. It gave me a bird's eye view of what people really don't care about. Some examples. Now, this may not just be generally in our group, but I've seen this consistently across the many groups that I do. What is it that I care about? If I'm very me-centered, I'm going to be concerned with what it is that I want in the group, what is it that I need in the group, how it is that I want it to be for me. If I'm we-centered, I'm going to be thinking about the greater good of the group, even if it may not be something that I particularly enjoy, something I particularly like, maybe even something I particularly agree with. I'm still going to be saying, well, you know what, it's just really not so much about me, it's about we. So I'll be open to the fact that I may not be interested in that, may not even need that particular thing, but there may be a whole host of other people in the group that do need the things that are being talked about, discussed, for instance. I also began to see that it encapsulates where we are in terms of our spiritual potential, because it doesn't it's not just about showing up weaknesses within the group. Great strengths show up as well. And so when I see people with great challenges, and they keep showing up, they keep doing the exercise, they keep, even when the exercise is stepped up, even when it becomes very difficult, those people with that inner core of strength rise up and they try, even if they don't do it perfectly. It's because we're not into perfection. They still continue to try. They still continue to do their very best. And what causes that? Some inner strength, some inner potential that they have, some inner determination. But I've also seen, and I've seen this particularly in myself, that one of the strengths that I have, and I'm not really ashamed to say it, is I have a great amount of determination. However, that determination also can have a downside where I can become very critical, say, and very judgmental. Well, what does that particularly look like? When I meet up with a hard thing, I'm just stubborn enough to keep at it. And I'm not going to give up because I feel if I don't give up, I'll eventually get it. Okay, that's a good thing. But how it will exhibit in a negative way is I'll tend to get critical of people who can't do that or who won't do that. And so I really have to be able to see that and be able to observe that I do have that weakness and that I want God to address that within me, and I want to agree with what He's addressing. I've also seen that it gives an exposure of the false self. A lot of people came into the program thinking they were this way, thinking they felt this way about a particular thing, or they were acting in this way about some certain issue. And through the program, they began to see that, wow, I'm really not doing that. I'm really not